Hey everybody, it's Bob from TNT. It's TNT Tuesday. It's also Cinco de Mayo, so happy Taco Tuesday. Turn this thing around. There we go. So again, TNT Tuesday. Thanks for joining. So you got a few people on already. So today we're going to talk about briefly track bar tech. We have a TJ here, and it's the perfect opportunity to show you why we do things the way we do them versus what the factory thought was a good idea. So let's start here. Let me flip this again. So as most of you guys know, that is a TJ stock track bar mount. It's a cast iron, goofy hook thing that's welded to mild steel. Mild steel being the frame rail. And it's my finger in there. It's a single shear deal. From the factory, it essentially had something like that, a tie rod end, okay? Which is fine for a factory Jeep, stock height, whatever. When you lift them, most of the aftermarket does something like that. They have you drill the taper. There's a taper, my fingers to go the right way. So the taper is in there like so. So they have you drill that out, usually a 9/16, some even to 5/8, and then you put a Heim joint deal with a single shear bolt. Not a fan. What we do, there we go, is we developed a bracket, actually two brackets, there. Well, pretty simple, get my hands out of the way. Pretty simple bracket that fits right up there. Now obviously the factory hook's in the way. Sean will be taking that off this afternoon. It's not for the faint of heart. Best way to get it off is with a torch let me turn this around. Best way to get that off is with a torch in small increments. It's going in the trash anyway. It's not even worth the scrap steel it's made out of because it's cast iron. So nibble it down with your torch. If you try, just experience. If you try to go in and cut the welds, what'll happen is you'll cut the frame. Since it's cast iron, it cuts at a different rate than your mild steel frame does, and you just end up with a mess. So take it off in small bite-sized pieces and get it the heck out of your way. Once your frame is clear, then, let me switch this one more time. I gotta put the bracket down, I ain't got enough hands. There it goes. You'll see on your factory coil bucket, that's where the coil goes. This little rod that sticks out, it's a stiffening rod the factory put all the way up and around to add some rigidity to that coil bucket. But you can see they left you this perfect, let me get square to it, perfect flat edge, right? Yeah, the welder on this one bled over a little bit, so you'll have to clean that up. But our bracket has this long tab. Try and hold all this long tab. That long tab will go right there. So you just stick it on, slide it back till it butts there, and for the most part, that will put you in the right position. But you also saw before when I held it up there, you can move it front and back on the frame. So if you're running a Dana 60 or, some big diff, typically you're going to need to push that track bar forward a little so you can get the track bar to clear the diff housing. So it's kind of a universal fabricator part. We typically put those on at full bump, but you can't, on this particular Jeep, we can't even get the full bump. Now I'll flip this around and show you why. See that divot right there? That's from contacting this. There. Sorry, I'm looking at my finger, not looking where I'm pointing the phone. So at ride height, supposed ride height, this Jeep was bound up because it was sitting on said track bar mount. So it's got to go. Can't get there from here. So we're gonna chop that off and fix this. You're probably, because it's right center of your screen, wondering why there's this big notch in the truss. We're cleaning up a bunch of things that were already done to this Jeep. This has our, 78 to 79 F250 Dana 44 conversion in the front. So that's our truss on there. Whoever installed this truss, in my opinion, it's rotated a shade too far forward. Typically when we install them, especially with an ARB, it's really tight, but it does clear. Customer bought this housing used, already had the truss on it, and then force fed it into this Jeep. And now we're fixing all of the little things that are hard to do on the floor. We have a lift, we're used to cycling suspension, so it's pretty easy stuff for us. So it had to be notched there. We'll clean that up a little more when we're done, but I just needed a cutout in there to make room for the ARB fitting that this front end's now getting an ARB. We already set, you could probably saw the paint marks on the ring gear. We just did the ring and pinion this morning, got the ARB all set up. So one little detail you may or may not have noticed, this has a rock crawler 3-link on it, and we actually build an upper mount that fits Jeremy's, what do you call it? It's kind of like a flex joint, kind of, sort of, but it's designed to, on your factory diff, you pound the factory clevite out, and you're left with that machined mount on top of your diff. So Jeremy makes a bolt together, I guess is what he calls it, a flex joint. Let me see if I can get a picture of it. So yeah, you can see the bolts here. So we actually make an upper control arm mount that fits Jeremy's bolt together flex joint. That's kind of long-winded way of saying it, but that's the best way to describe it. So this axle has that mount on it because it does have rock crawler's 3-link on it. And we also have some clearance issues, there again, track bar and all of that. So we're gonna fix all of that this afternoon. So that's kind of the whole point of this video, was to talk about our track bar system and how we fix those clearance issues. The bracket I showed you, I'll turn that around again. So that is our high clearance bracket. You see this, hang on, I ain't got enough hands. That notch where my thumb is, and there's 2 bolt holes, right? So that gives you a choice for where you're gonna mount your track bar. If your Jeep and your setup requires the track bar as high as it can possibly go, so that's where my thumb is, that upper hole, this notch becomes a cut guide. You can draw this out and just cut this whole bottom piece of that bracket off, so you have a nice, my thumb's kind of hiding it, so you have a nice little short track bar bracket. If you need a little more drop because you're running a drop pitman arm or whatever, then you can use this lower hole. So we also make that bracket, I think it's 2 inches longer. So that whole bolt hole system is dropped down 2 inches lower. For those of you that are running like a 4-inch or a pitman arm for a 4-inch lift, a big drop pitman arm, I typically don't like those setups because they create up travel problems, especially with a diff swap. You know, you've got longer steering arms on a Dana 44 or a Dana 60, you know, take your pick. So the tie rod is farther forward than it is in the Jeep. Plus the Jeep, not that anybody really runs that on a modified Jeep. If you do, you need to put that on your next modification list. The factory inverted Y steering, you're typically running cross inverted T or crossover steering. So what happens is with a big drop pitman arm, you fix all this track bar stuff and get all that out of your way. And then your next problem with up travel is the end of the pitman arm crashes into the tie rod. So we typically like to run a factory pitman arm, or especially with a Dana 60, is the PSC makes a flat blank pitman arm. I guess that'd be the way to say it. The steering box end is splined for you. All of that machine work is done. The rest of the pitman arm, it's just basically a piece of bar stock that's flat, and you can drill in where your drag link needs to go, either top or bottom, or different lengths. You know, a Dana 60 has a lot more, or has a lot longer steering arm. So if you don't match your pitman arm length to that longer steering arm, so this piece, let's see if I can be really tricky, this piece here, that from here back that way towards ball joint center line is longer. So your steering ratios will be wrong. You'll run out of steering box, physically can't go any farther, but yet your steering knuckles can still, they have farther to go. They have more angle you could put. So you're going to lose steering if you don't fix that ratio. So that's why we really like to use that PSC generic, if you will, or fabricator pitman arm, so we can fix some of those things. What else we got? So yeah, we also make that bracket. I'll go show you something similar. It's a little different on the JK, but we do make that bracket and track bar system for JK. You know, it's fairly popular these days to swap in a Dana 60 of some flavor into the front end of your JK. And I'll flip this around. We get to see a little arts and crafts. Sean's still working on the inner fenders here on IREX. But that is the JK version. So it's a weld-on piece as well. It does kick the, let me get from the front there. See how it kicks? Let me switch hands. It kicks this about 1.25 inches farther outboard. The factory one's clear in here. And the factory one's a little stamped sheet metal. As those of you that have worked on JKs know, you know, lighter is better according to the factory. Because your uncle thinks we need to have these magic fuel standards, CAFE standards. So the JK and newer Jeeps, lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter, those little brackets don't stand up to the unsprung weight of a Dana 60. So we make that part for the JKs as well, because it's the same problem. And actually on the JK, in my opinion, it's worse because you don't have a lot of leeway where you can move the front end. It kind of has to go where it has to go. On a TJ, there's multiple different stretches and whatnots you can do to a TJ, because the steering box is pretty easy to deal with. The JK steering box is not easy to deal with. We do have a kit for that too. We can kick your steering box about an inch forward, and some people say, well, an inch really isn't worth all the work. Well, if you're trying to really stuff a Dana 60 at max up travel with, say, 42-inch rubber, that inch is as good as a mile. Can't really go much more on the JK because of the radiator and the way the steering box mounts to the frame. There's just no good place to go with it. But on Rex here, we moved it, our 1-inch kit, and it clears 45-inch, which, oh yeah, we got 45s. Check them out. So that is a 45-inch Interco Super Swamper SX. Yeah, they're probably not brand new because they've been out a while, but we were like, that is like the first set that was shipped. Yeah, sorry, it shows how long we've been working on this project, but it's getting closer. Like I said, we got arts and crafts going right now. We're building a complete one-off set of inner fender oils. And, you know, CAD and SolidWorks and all of that stuff is really cool. On a project like this, you can't beat some poster board because there's so many crazy angles and pieces and bends to get around the coilovers and to clear. We're running Hydro Boost. You can see that there. You know, it's just easier to do it old school, and I'm kind of an old school kind of guy anyway, so, you know, like to work with our hands around here. So oh, here's something you might be of interest. Time we got? Yeah, we got a couple minutes. So I know a lot of you have seen this big truck. It's been in the background of a lot of videos. It's not really our everyday forte, but the customer brought it to us because of the Jeep builds we do and knew that we could handle all the finishing work and some of the things that needed to be tuned up and fixed. So what Craig is doing right now is wiring lights, and that's wiring is one thing we're pretty good at. So you can see tails sticking out. Craig's already got, so you got this tail here, right? Hot in the ground. That is one continuous harness all the way up and around and back down. We started down here and brought it all the way around. So each light is individually wired. They're wired in series. For those of you that understand wiring principles, that's hooking one to you're daisy chaining them one to the next. So Craig started with light 1, brought the wires off of that light out the hole of light 2, wired light 2 to light 1, put light 2 in, fished the wires out to light 3's hole, etc., etc., etc. So everything is soldered and heat shrinked, because once they're inside that push bar bumper thing, you can't get to them again. So we brought that all the way around to one connector, so the part is still removable. And then that's just the beginning of the wiring on this truck, because it has a lot of lights. So Craig will probably burn up a couple of soldering irons and several rolls of solder I ordered him 100-foot rolls of heat shrink, which he's already halfway through the first roll. Yeah, it's going to be a tedious, time-consuming job, but that's the way we do things around here. That way you never have to go back in it and fight a corroded connection or any of that kind of dumb stuff that people use. Scotch locks, oh my God, it makes Craig just go, he just starts freaking out when he sees Scotch locks because all they do is corrode wiring harnesses, crimp butt connectors, same thing. All of our wiring is soldered and heat shrinked. You never have problems with it. So do it right the first time or don't do it at all. So other than that, I guess we'll sign off and call this little Tech Tuesday a wrap. Mary and the crew over at manufacturing are busy. That's putting it mildly. We do appreciate all of the business that you folks have given us over the last 3-4 weeks, whatever. Jason is cranking parts as fast as he can crank them. You probably noticed on our Facebook page we are looking to hire a welder to help him dig out and keep up. So we're thankful for that. But it also irritates. The lights are horrible. There we go, that's better. Also kind of irritates Mary and I. We don't like to be that company that takes forever to build your parts. So please be patient. We kind of got inundated, which is awesome that people are still out Jeeping and wanting to fix their Jeeps with all the other craziness that's going on. So thank you for that. Please be patient. We're getting stuff out as quick as we can. What else we got? Oh, where I was going with that is if you have any specific questions on any of this track bar stuff, Mary's fairly well versed. She can field most questions without any, but if you really have something crazy, you want to try something, whatever, she can find me. May not be instantaneous to your phone call or email, but I will get back to you. So we've done some pretty creative things with those brackets on just, took the brackets and made them fit where they got to fit. And, for those of you that follow us know I'm not afraid of cutting things. So, but for the most part, our kit, parts, whatever you want to call it, will solve at least 95% of problems right out of the box. If you have something a really unique combination, you might need a little tweaking. I know Austin was watching earlier, if he's still here. He fed me a bunch of measurements and some drawings, and I made him a one-off track bar, and I've never seen his Jeep project. So he took track bar out of the box and put it in, and it solved all of his problems, and he's on to solving his next problem. Little self-induced there, right, Austin? But that's all right. His project's coming along. So we can do that. It's not something we do every day. Like I said, our off-the-shelf parts will solve 95% of your problems. But if you run into something, that's usually the best thing to do is order the parts, put them in. And if something's just not, you gotta, like the guys doing the Super Duty swaps, they're kind of a unique animal because that differential housing is so far outboard. We need to, sometimes that requires a little creative bend work. Which we can do, but I'm going to want the off-the-shelf part in there because it just makes it easier to figure out where we have to do those sorts of things. If we need to do them. Probably won't, but if you're really pushing the envelope, you got to understand if you're really pushing the envelope, that custom costs and custom takes time. So I guess it's Cinco de Mayo, so go have a margarita. It's Taco Tuesday, so go have a taco and a margarita. I think that's what I'm gonna do. So with that, I'm gonna sign off because it is lunchtime, and I'm surprised Mary's not out here poking me in the back of the head. I'm hungry. So yeah, we're gonna go have a margarita and a taco. Hope you guys all do the same. As I've been signing off recently, if you've been watching, keep your head down, keep your powder dry, and we'll get through this. So see you guys next week.